Muito boa tarde. Mais uma vez, estamos mesmo a entrar na reta final da nossa conferência de hoje, depois da celebração dos 19 anos do itSMF. Agora vamos falar sobre The Future of Trust. É este o tema da intervenção de Pedro Mota, o nosso próximo orador. Ele é licenciado em Engenharia Eletrotécnica e de Computadores pelo Instituto Superior Técnico, pré-Bolonha. Tem ainda formação em Gestão pela nova SBE. É consultor e gestor sénior com experiência em sistemas de informação, tendo exercido funções em diferentes multinacionais e empresas nacionais, com projetos concretizados em vários países. Esteve também envolvido em muitos desses projetos de internacionalização na Europa e na América do Sul. Hoje gera desenvolvimento de negócio e de projetos de SI nas áreas de estratégia, governo e gestão e eficiência e flexibilidade. E está aqui, então, também na qualidade de Senior Consulting Manager do IDC. Pedro, vamos então à sua apresentação.
Obrigado, boa tarde a todos. Antes de mais, agradecer ao itSMF o convite para estar aqui, para vos apresentar um pouco alguns dados relativos ao que a IDC não só levantou relativamente a surveys junto de clientes e de mercado, como também na parte final partilhar convosco algumas das previsões sobre este tema. Será que estou longe demais? Não. Sobre este tema do Future of Trust. É realmente um dos temas que está na ordem do dia para muitas organizações, ou para todas as organizações, e aquilo que eu vou partilhar convosco tem muito a ver com que grandes organizações a nível mundial estão preocupados neste momento e o que é que estão a investir e o que é que nós prevemos também que vão vir a ser a evolução neste tema da confiança. Começando um bocadinho sobre o que são neste momento os drivers e as áreas de investimento, um dos grandes drivers para este tema da confiança é claramente a questão do risco e da privacidade. Portanto, 40% das respostas que nós recebemos indicaram que há dois drivers principais na parte da confiança organizacional que têm a ver, por um lado, com a gestão integrada do risco e, por outro, com o manter os dados pessoais e a segurança associada aos dados pessoais. Também já se falou hoje aqui um pouco da inteligência artificial. É claramente também uma das áreas que levantamos como sendo áreas de investimento para as organizações, não só em 2021, como também já em 2022, sobretudo como uma das ferramentas que são fundamentais para garantir os níveis de segurança e os níveis de confiança, porque os níveis de confiança das empresas estão muito ligados à segurança e aos riscos de segurança, e esta área é uma área de segurança e de investimento, e sobretudo nestas áreas de inteligência artificial e de analytics. Outra área, a parte de gestão do risco, onde realmente também está a haver um forte investimento em analisar. Vamos falar mais à frente um bocadinho destes drivers de risco e do que é que está a acontecer neste momento, quais são as grandes preocupações, mas é uma área de investimento também para as organizações. Compliance. Falou-se ainda na intervenção anterior, João falava das questões não só das normas, como também de tudo o que está a ser preparado a este nível, de que todas as soluções e todas as organizações têm que cumprir realmente com um conjunto de normativos e de regulamentos. É uma área também onde as organizações estão a investir. Por último, a parte da privacidade e a parte toda associada também à utilização ética dos dados e à preocupação também com a sustentabilidade associada a todos estes sistemas da confiança. Não vos quero amassar com demasiados números, vou só destacar aqui algumas áreas. Aliás, depois isto, como vai ser partilhado, podem depois ver mais alguns detalhes, mas em termos dos desafios para estabelecer confiança, foi identificado por todos estes players de mercado, logo no topo, como grande desafio o facto de que os ciberataques são cada vez mais sofisticados. Portanto, essa é uma das grandes preocupações das organizações quando abordamos este tema da confiança. Segundo, complexidade da componente regulatória. Porque não basta responder aos ataques e estar preparado para os ataques, também tem que se cumprir com aquilo que são as regras do jogo para estabelecer a confiança junto do mercado e junto dos clientes. Terceiro, infraestrutura. Infraestrutura de IT que cada vez mais é fragmentada e que está a ter uma evolução muito rápida para diferentes componentes, para diferentes maneiras de implementar as soluções de IT, e isso também é uma preocupação, que acaba por estar ligada à velocidade a que tudo isto está a acontecer e ter que responder a essa evolução. Também destacando aqui alguns na parte do risco, o que é que as empresas estão a identificar. Uma delas, eu destaquei aqui esta, do Business Operations Interruptions, é porque também estão preocupados em termos da confiança, não é só com o que se passa dentro de casa, é também com o que se passa com as suas supply chains, com as suas cadeias de fornecimento, que podem influenciar o fornecimento dos serviços e o fornecimento de cada uma das organizações. Não depende já só do que temos dentro de casa, mas também do que estamos a receber. Continua a ser a questão do terrorismo, das catástrofes naturais, continua a estar também bastante no topo das preocupações. E destaquei este aqui porque penso que também é um dos temas que vai crescer e temos essa expectativa de que continua a ser, tem vindo a crescer, a questão das tecnologias, das novas tecnologias, que representam, no fundo, um risco adicional para as organizações o terem que lidar com essas evoluções. Depois do risco, quais são os 5 drivers principais para as organizações, para a parte de confiança organizacional que foram identificadas? O primeiro é a parte do risco e da privacidade, como já falámos no início, que está realmente no topo da lista das preocupações. Melhorar a governance e melhorar ao mesmo tempo a produtividade e a inovação. Portanto, tudo isto tem que caminhar em conjunto. Também já foi referido hoje aqui numa apresentação que o problema da confiança que está associado à segurança, que está associado à disponibilização dos outputs, não pode parar, a inovação não pode parar a evolução do negócio das organizações. E isso é uma das preocupações. Das áreas de investimento, realçava só aqui que aparece a parte de Best Available Tools and Practices, ou seja, estão no topo questões de identificar, como já falei antes, de identificar os fatores de risco, de questões de tecnologia, mas também a preocupação que tem vindo a crescer de selecionar não só as ferramentas, mas as práticas associadas. Outro que está a subir também bastante é este tema da recuperação. Aliás, nós temos todos consciência de que este tem sido um dos pontos de impacto, digamos assim, de toda... Cada vez que ouvimos falar de um cyber-ataque, para além da preocupação do que é que aconteceu com o cyber-ataque, está como é que as organizações responderam. Portanto, também está a ter um peso cada vez mais relevante e é um aspecto fundamental da confiança para as organizações. Basta ver o que se passou, não vou dizer nomes, não é, com algumas das grandes empresas portuguesas e o modo como a confiança nessas empresas foi abalado pelo modo como responderam melhor ou pior aos ciberataques. Outro aspecto também muito relevante tem a ver com esta parte dos dados, não é? De que realmente cada vez temos não só mais acesso a dados, mais ferramentas para trabalhar os dados, mas é necessário garantir que não só estamos a cumprir no modo como os utilizamos, como também que temos toda a governance associada para garantir a confiança com aquilo que fazemos com os dados. Na parte da segurança, realçava aqui a parte da automatização. Proactively integrate security in existing and new business initiatives. Ou seja, também o estar a crescer a questão de que todas as novas iniciativas associadas ao negócio que pressupõem logo no início que se incorpore medidas que acautelem tudo que tenha a ver com a segurança, mas sem eliminar a capacidade de responder ao negócio e de as implementar. Na parte de privacy, as métricas, que é outro aspecto também importante em todo, que aliás está ligado a todas esta evolução na área da confiança e das medidas para garantir a confiança, que é, temos que medir, temos que estabelecer objetivos e ir medindo como é que estamos a avançar em relação a esses objetivos. E depois, aqui também o enforcement de Data Retention Classification Policies, ou seja, a preocupação em ter políticas, não só políticas bem definidas para o manuseio dos dados, como também para o tempo de retenção desses dados e o modo como os retemos. E, pronto, preocupação com as políticas. Ter políticas bem definidas para todas estas áreas. Este aqui realçava a parte que também é sobretudo para grandes organizações, eu diria, mas que cada vez mais também provavelmente vai começar a ter, vai continuar a ter mais relevância mesmo para organizações mais pequenas, que é o modo como nós usamos os dados, o ethical use of personal or private data e a importância de garantirmos que estamos alinhados relativamente àquilo que fazemos e aos dados e ao compliance, não só com temas de manuseamento dos dados, mas também com todas as políticas que têm a ver com a sustentabilidade e com o suportar as causas associadas às mudanças climáticas. Então, também é uma preocupação que já está aí para o topo, de garantir que se queremos confiança para a organização, também não é só segurança, é também garantir todos estes aspectos. E o ecossistema. Já comentei antes, apenas aqui a reforçar, que não basta pensarmos dentro, temos que pensar também como é que nos relacionamos com os nossos parceiros. Okay? Portanto, esta era a primeira parte e que diz respeito, no fundo, aos findings de surveys feitos junto de empresas a nível mundial. Vou-lhes falar um bocadinho agora, então, de quais são as previsões. E as previsões que vamos falar, vou-vos falar só de algumas das 10 principais que a IDC fez, mas estão baseadas num conjunto, ou estão muito relacionadas com um conjunto de drivers externos que influenciam a confiança nas empresas. E quais são esses drivers? Primeiro, nós sabermos que toda a parte de disrupção continua, não é? Na realidade está, na maior parte dos casos, a aumentar em termos das necessidades, não só de garantir resiliência na parte da infraestrutura digital, como os novos modelos, as novas tecnologias, as novas áreas de negócio, tudo isto tem vindo a aumentar e tem impacto na confiança das empresas. O risco geopolítico. Agora, se calhar, isto mais do que nunca é fácil de entender, pensando nas consequências do que está a acontecer com a guerra na Ucrânia, mas também porque está a haver alterações ao nível das sociedades e até relativamente à questão populacional que vão ter impacto sobre o modo como as empresas vão ter que continuar a interagir e a construir a sua confiança. O ecossistema digital, que realmente cada vez temos mais um ambiente multiplataforma e estamos a ter realmente também processos de negócio que são menos lineares, são mais dependentes na altura de ajustes que são feitos entre diferentes tipos de fornecedores, entre diferentes tipos de clientes que temos que continuar a fornecer e a desenvolver o negócio. Mais drivers. já comentei há pouco. Este também é um driver que está a ter impacto na confiança das empresas, a parte ambiental e da responsabilidade social. Os dados, portanto, o facto de que realmente temos não só mais dados, como também mais interligação com diferentes entidades dentro do nosso ecossistema, que também acaba por, como está ali, por 20, 24, 80% das empresas estão a pensar que vão alterar, que tudo isto vai impactar também o modo como se relacionam com os fornecedores e com os parceiros. E Cybersecurity and Risk. Portanto, continuamos a ter cada vez maior risco ao nível da cibersegurança. É um negócio cada vez mais sofisticado para quem está fora da lei, não é? E para as empresas que estão... neste momento já há indicações, como nós sabemos, que, por exemplo, que as empresas já estão a contar que há 100% de probabilidade de alguém tentar fazer um hacking dos seus sistemas. Quer dizer, não há 80, 50, 100, não, mas acima de 50, empresas com mais de 50 empregados já estão a montar estratégias a pensar, é garantido que vou ser atacado. Okay? Portanto, tudo isto tem também muito impacto ao nível daquilo que são os temas de confiança para as empresas e daquilo que tem que ser trabalhado para continuar a garantir os níveis de confiança que pretendemos. Com base nestes surveys e neste estudo destes drivers, a IDC fez um conjunto de previsões para 2022 e está agora a revê-los para 2023. Nós não vamos falar de todos as 10 previsões que aqui estão, vamos falar de algumas, ok? Começando por esta, de que a parte regulatória. A parte regulatória vai, inclusive, obrigar a automatizar ainda mais os processos internos e de IT, de modo como não só manuseamos os dados, como depois reagimos cada vez que há ataques, cada vez que há uma quebra da segurança. Portanto, tudo isso vai estar no topo das prioridades das organizações. A questão das Cross-Technology Ecosystems Platforms, ou seja, o facto de que também cada vez temos uma arquitetura que, ao nível do IT, que se vai alterando, vai-se ter que começar a olhar para as ferramentas de suporte para garantir a segurança, para garantir a confiança, que sejam mais ao nível de uma plataforma unificada que pode gerir todos estes riscos e dar resposta às necessidades e aos ataques que as empresas vão sofrendo. Outra tendência, partilha de risco. Será mais ou menos inevitável que, com toda esta questão da cloud, dos software as a service, toda esta maior relevância da ligação aos fornecedores e dependência também neles próprios, começar a haver uma maior partilha de risco entre o cliente e estes fornecedores e arranjarem modelos de partilha de risco para garantirem a confiança. O que é que são estas duas últimas que eu tinha para partilhar convosco? É de que realmente também o facto mas já falei um bocadinho antes, o facto da dispersão e desta utilização de diferentes fornecedores com diferentes tipos de tecnologias vai levar cada vez mais ao automatismo de toda a gestão desta componente da segurança e da confiança e o estender daquilo que é as normas, as preocupações, as políticas, os cuidados que as empresas têm, estendê-los ao seu ecossistema de fornecedores. E aqui já estamos a falar de maneira mais genérica, não estamos a falar só dos fornecedores de IT, mas todos os fornecedores das diferentes linhas de negócio da organização. Portanto, é o reconhecimento de que toda a cadeia de valor tem influência na confiança que se pretende gerar relativamente à empresa. Portanto, e ao negócio que se tem, e há uma grande, forte dependência também em todo este tema da cadeia de valor. E pronto, basicamente era isto. A minha ideia era partilhar realmente só, pelo menos, ficarem com uma ideia em grandes números, por um lado, quais são as grandes preocupações das organizações neste momento, os drivers que influenciam os temas da confiança e do futuro da confiança e, pronto, algumas das previsões que a IDC faz, que estão todas relacionadas com a rápida evolução do negócio, com os novos fornecedores, com as dependências nas cadeias de valor, mas também com sustentabilidade e as alterações climáticas e os termos que se queremos que confiem em nós começar a atuar nessas áreas como empresas e, por último, ter toda a parte da automatização também garantida. Ok? Obrigado.
Pedro Mota, muito obrigada por esta apresentação também. É chegado o momento das questões, das perguntas, caso haja alguma para o nosso orador. Javier.
Acho que o Xavier estava-se a despedir.
Assim sendo, Pedro, vou pedir-lhe que permaneça em palco, uma vez que vai fazer parte do nosso momento, do nosso painel, do debate que vai acontecer a seguir. E para moderar este debate, chamo também o nosso António Bento, Vogal da Direção do itSMF, e é também um rosto bastante conhecido dos nossos eventos Hot Hands-on Talk e It's Time to Talk About. É ele que vai então moderar este painel final sobre o tema que este ano aqui nos juntou, a confiabilidade e agilidade da gestão de serviços. Vai ser, então, esta mesa vai ser composta também pelo Pedro Mota, pelo Johan Amsenga, também, para integrar este nosso painel de debate, e pelo Pedro Castro Henriques, o CEO da Strong Step, que hoje ainda não tínhamos visto aqui em palco, mas que também faz parte deste nosso painel de debate. Muito obrigada a todos que continuam connosco, quer online, quer aqui, em presencial. Vamos, então, António Bento, a partir de agora, os trabalhos serão, então, contigo. Obrigada.
Obrigado, Daniela. Está ligado? Tá. Obrigado, Daniela. We will sit for now. Thank you. So, hello, everybody. Thank you for keeping your patience and your minds with us. It's a great pleasure to have you here. We will lead this final round and panel in English. Johan was very resilient today, and we believe that it's worth it that we speak in English and lead this in English. I will start by presenting Pedro. We'll just wait 15 seconds, because you already know Johan and Pedro Mota, so we will present Pedro Castro Henriques, now ready for the show, for the final show. Pedro is the CEO of Strong Step. Is a very experienced executive in both IT service management and international projects. Also engaged in innovation programs and projects, so it's with great pleasure that we have Pedro with us, and it will be of great value for us. Thank you for accepting the invitation. And with no further delay, we would start with a first general round, and I would address to Johan the first question. Regarding trustworthiness and governance, in terms of how can we keep it both as an asset and as a value, because you have talked about trustworthiness, trust, confidence as a perception in a context related to behaviors, to values, etc. So, in terms of governance, how can we align and balance these views of trustworthiness both as a value, an organizational value and cultural trait, and as an asset that needs to be managed in terms of risk management?
Thank you for letting me speak English. In terms of governance, I think there are two facets. You have the controlling body of your company. That's where your governance lie. And your governance is viewed outside to your organization, and that gives a view or a view of your company, what the company does, what the company's values are, and so forth. There's also an internal component where the employees of the company looks to governance in terms of what should be done, how they lead the company, how it's filtrated through management and so on. So from outside, governance plays a big role in terms of the trustworthiness of a company. How the company is being led, what the direction of the company is, will determine the trustworthiness of the company. Internally, your governance must be such that your employees will trust the board, management, and so forth. So there must be a trustworthiness component inside as well. And two of the things that's very important regarding that is what's also mentioned by Antonio is the culture of the company. If there's a culture where you feel you will be tipped on the fingers if you do something wrong, or you should not speak against your manager or whatever, then there's no trust within the company, and that will influence the productivity within the company. So trustworthiness within the company depends very much on the culture of the company. If the culture is such that there's no trustworthiness, no trust between employees, between management and the board, then you will not be able to provide the services that you should be. So culture must be changed then. Another thing is transparency. If there is, from the direction of the board, the employees feel that things are being hidden from them, or they don't understand why a certain direction is taken, then there's no trust in the board. So yes, for me, it's the two facets. I hope I answer your question. Whatever is being experienced within the company will be reflected to the outside. So if employees are not happy, it will be shown in the service that they provide to their customers. And that, again, will have an influence on trustworthiness from customers on the company, and will then have an effect on the value and your asset.
Thank you. Thank you, Johan. Yes, definitely you have answered, because we know that the service that we have mentioned during the day, the quality of the service, and your distinction between quality and trustworthiness, etc., are dependent, of course, on the internal side of the question also, and the organization. Thanks. I would give Pedro a little rest, because you have just spoken, so okay. I would address Pedro in terms of, you are very experienced on implementing ISO 20K, on implementing standards, integrated systems, etc. So, from your experience, how would you classify the relation or the alignment between organizations that address and implement management systems, standards, norms, etc., with their degree of managing trustworthiness and with their degree of managing confidence? So is there a relationship here from your perception, or, okay, we normalize and we go after the standard, but the trust part of the question is another highway?
Okay. Very well. Thank you very much for inviting me here. It's an honor to be here with you, and congratulations for the great event so far at the itSMF and all the speakers. So talking about trustworthiness, when I saw the presentation of Johan, after he finished it presented, I went to him to talk, and asked, how can we know? And he argued about the importance of having an indicator and difficulty of having an indicator of trustworthiness. And he said that the proxy would be the quality. If you could measure the quality, maybe that could be an indicator, if I got it right, of indicator of how much trust you could put on that company, on that person, or on that service. So when I got to my first job, I started to work in...
Just put it a little down.
Okay.
Yes.
So when I got to my first job, I started in another country, in Sweden. So with my first salary, I was living in the south of Sweden, working for a technology company called Ericsson. And I got my first salary. I had the chance to go to IKEA, which didn't exist in Portugal at that point. So long story short, I went to spend my first salary at IKEA to buy a furniture to put my computer on top of it. It was like these towers still. So I got the instructions from my girlfriend. I didn't know IKEA before. But I told her, no, I don't need instructions. I'm Portuguese. I don't need instructions. So she just looked at me like that. And OK, I tried for 10 minutes to put the furniture together. And I started to sweat. And some parts were spare. And it was not fitting right. So I said, OK, please give me the instructions. So Vivica gave me the instructions. And in 2 minutes, I could put it together. And it was great. All the parts were there. And I was like, eureka moment. So, OK, if I could do this in software development, in IT services, I was starting to work at the company, and I was responsible for drawing their processes. So I understood, like everyone here, I guess, has put up IKEA furniture together. Yes? OK, someone hasn't not tried? Or? OK. So, as I saw, it's so simple that even me, with the first time I was putting it together, with a simple instruction, I could do it. So it's the same with the itSMF. If you are going to a new job, if you are doing software development or artificial intelligence, but you have a very clear and simple, this is the key. It has to be very simple so that anyone almost can follow, even if you are a junior, because you know of all the lack of resources in Portugal and in the world, in technology and in your areas we talk here today, it's very important to have processes. But OK, if you have processes and everyone knows those processes, still there is a need, this might be human, that someone checks that actually things are being done the way that we have agreed that are the best practices. So that's where the certification helps, because not only we have a reference of what are the best practices internationally, the frameworks for service management or for software development, but also we can then have someone else to audit and tell us, are we actually applying those best practices, or are we, like we are green, we are doing those practices, yellow, more or less some of them, the red we are missing. So then what we build when we show this kind of report is like, okay, there are some pieces here you have put together, there are some pieces missing, and then you can help the company to fix those gaps and get to be more trustworthy, have higher quality, and deliver more on time, on budget, and with expected quality. That's the goal of these best practices. So I believe there's a strong link between the trustworthiness, the quality that you deliver, and having a process, and of course, on top of the cake, the cherry on top of the cake is to be certified, because then you are recognized by ISO internationally, that anywhere you go, they know they are using the international best practices.
Okay, thanks, Pedro. And the question is more relevant since, as Pedro mentioned, the regulatory aspects will be a driver from now on, more and more in terms of risk management. Thank you. Pedro, thanks for your amazing presentation a while ago, and it was very good, and I want to pick one piece of that regarding markets, regarding third parties, and regarding supply chain management, precisely in terms of what you have mentioned there, that in terms of the risk management frameworks and concerns, the relationship, the partnerships, the third-party management are on the top of the agenda and concerns. So what are the key aspects on these times of uncertainty in terms of partnerships and in terms of managing the third parties that, of course, are in our ecosystem? So how can we keep trustable and at the same time agile in that relationship?
Well, I think there are different aspects that we have been dealing in when it comes to the third parties. Some have to do with the supplier of services, and some of them, for instance, when you think about RGPD, and there is already some rules that you have to comply regarding the third parties and the kind of treatment they do to data inside your company, or data that is from you and they are processing. So that's the kind of thing that will take more relevance. But then you have also to think about when you are using infrastructures or cloud services, and you know there's all this thing about governments having their data not in foreign countries, but at least inside certain spaces. That has to do with trust and the kind of commitments that the organization have with their customers and with the citizens. And then you have the other one also that is related with the capability of the third parties to supply what you need. Mm-hmm. That can also jeopardize trust. So the way, if they really don't deliver on the level they were expected to deliver, the capacity, or so it's not just the risk of breaches, it's also of supplying, and you being able to keep supplying your customers with your products and your services, and it's more and more dependent on third parties. Mm-hmm. And that's basically why we talk about this, is this dependence will lead us into be more careful with compliance on one side, mm-hmm. but also with understanding really what are the processes that our suppliers are using to give us what we need.
Okay, and interesting because are we already seeing an evolution beyond contracts and beyond formality in order to integrate the partners and the third parties, even on our strategic thinking, etc. And for example, are we seeing an evolution and an increase on second parts auditing, etc. Or we are still on the contract, on the penalty, etc.
No, I think we are already on auditing side, and the strategic side is also when you think about this thing about the cloud suppliers and ensure that they are in certain areas, you're already thinking strategically, because on the day-to-day you don't need that. Mm-hmm. You could keep on having the service. But then, yes, there is auditing more and more, and also starting to share some platforms in terms of security, for instance, mm-hmm. and having some services that are already implementing some risk sharing on what is supplied, and if something happens, how you deal with it.
Okay. Thanks. I'll be with you in a minute. Johan, back to you. We have heard especially during the morning, on the several presentations, we have heard a lot about change management. Change management as a key process and a key factor of success during the implementation, during the search and the seek for quality on the implementation, on the service delivery, etc. In your opinion, how are we now in terms of organizations on this change management, and I would address again knowledge management concern as a key factor on trustworthiness? How can we improve change management and knowledge management in a trustful way on organizations?
That is a very difficult question. I think for anything that has to do with change, so speaking very, very generic about change, you need trust. People will not be willing to change if there's not a trust in whatever factors are causing this change or enforcing this change. So with change management in service delivery, if there is a change in, and now you must correct me if I'm going off the mark here because service management is not my area.
I trust you.
Do you have the evidence? If you need a change, why should that change be there? What would be the objection to that change? You will have internal to the organization, any change you will have objection to. You may have objection to the change from your customer, unless he can be convinced that that change will be to his advantage. And again, all this has to do with relationships. It's your relationship with your customer, it's your relationship internally, the people who needs to make these changes. And that then will be based on trust. So in terms of knowledge management, we always talk about lessons learned. So I'm going to focus on that. What has happened in the past was proven that it was successful, or we experienced a problem and there was a way in how we address that problem. So if you capture that within in a knowledge base or somewhere where you can go and have a look at that, when the same thing happens or you need to make a change or whatever, you can go and refer to that. You can see this worked in the past, and there's a form of trust in that because you already know that it worked.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Patterns and managing patterns and communicate them with the organization.
Communication always very important.
Okay. Thanks. As I mentioned, I trust you, and
in this case, you might consider that.
Okay. Pedro, I will be with you in a minute for talking about processes and operations. Okay, we'll put a little hands-on, but I would ask Pedro, what about in your presentation? We have seen lots of concerns with lots of topics, infrastructure, the third parties, regulations, laws, etc., etc. What about training, awareness? What about it? And what about nowadays, on these strange times, about the markets, the labor markets, the core competencies on IT that are a scarce resource? What about it? Because everybody is in deep difficulty to recruit and to have teams, to have on their teams the core competencies that are needed on the IT. What about how do you see the labor market nowadays? Because you have a very wider vision of the market, of the competencies needed. How do you see that in terms of trustworthiness and agility?
That's a tough one again. No, it's an easy one. It's an easy one. Because probably what I would say is what everybody would say about it. That's the market. We are lacking a lot of expertise in the markets. We know it. In the predictions, we talk a bit about practices and policies, but we didn't put too much emphasis on the people and the training. But there is at least one of the predictions not shared there, where
that was
where
the one.
We mentioned,
that was the one.
Yeah,
okay.
Where we mentioned that one of the issues is the worry about to find not only find the people that can assume the top priority regarding, for instance, security issues, but also all the team. Yes, was not shared here, but it's there because it's really one of the worries. I think not only, of course, in Portugal, but across all the companies. And as I said, it's not only one of the worries is having the right staffing for dealing with this, but also, of course, the training of all the employees and all the people involved in the business. But the main worry, at least from the people who decide, they first worry about having a good team that will then handle the rest. Okay.
Okay.
Clearly
Okay.
in there.
Thanks. Okay. It was a little hidden there, but we got there. Thanks. Thanks, Pedro.
May I add something to that?
Yes, of course. Of course. Please.
Sorry, my focus is now, can you hear me? My focus is now very much on trustworthiness, and one of the aspects is the face that a company or organization has to the outside. And especially in service delivery, there will be interaction with people in your company, like a help desk and so on. If those people are not properly trained on how to work with people, then you will have a bad face to the public, and it will have influence on your trustworthiness. My example earlier of the airline, in South Africa we have many such examples, especially in government departments where I'm sorry to say people do not, they are not friendly, they are, to put it bluntly, they are lazy. They just do not care about the customer. They have no incentive to care about the customer. And that puts a very bad face on it, and that heavily influences the trustworthiness of the government.
Okay. Thanks, Johan. That's exactly the point. Pedro, let's put a little hands-on in terms of processes and operations, and link that with agility. Okay, how do you see nowadays the process organization, the practices in terms of IT service management and delivery, maintaining trust and confidence, and at the same time being very pressed to be agile and to deliver with agility and with SLAs, each more pressured?
That's a great question. Thank you. So if we look at the service management, we can tell three different major layers. One be the strategic level, where you define what services you want to provide or what are strategic for you to continue, or which services to abandon because you don't have capacity or human resources, or even you don't want to deliver them strategically. Then you have the operational layer, like you were asking, how can we make this operational layer trustable and agile? And then we have the other support layer. So the operational layer, we have those processes or those services that we define as strategic. We have to, if they are new to the organization, we have to draw these processes. We have to make a plan for them to start being operated, these new services. Let's say in the travel agency, we have a new service of transport. We have to draw this process, we have to plan it, we have then to transit. We have to have human resources that are capable and trained to operate this, so that brings trustworthiness, that we have a plan and we actually follow that plan and adapt it. That's the agility, the agile side. We have to be going on fast circles. We cannot plan everything for January 2024 and expect all the plan to go like that until the end, and make a very strong analysis at the beginning, like a waterfall, and then implement, and then at the end test. That doesn't work anymore. You have to do very short cycles, like, okay, we'll try this, and then we implement it, and then we test it. And we'll do this every month until we get it right. It's the way to be agile, and also the way to be trustworthy is that you actually draw these processes, you identify very well and plan those services, and then you transit in a small scale, see how it goes, and then, okay, if it goes right, then you can scale up to the part of the organization or to all of the organization. So to be reliable, but agile at the same time, you have to make mistakes, you have to try, and you have to make some errors until you get it right. And even during the way, the reality will change. Like you were saying today when we talked this morning, the tourism offer, and we have so much people coming to Portugal for holidays that in Algarve, some of the restaurants could not serve dinner and lunch because they didn't have personnel to do that. They had to choose, okay, we do dinner or we do the lunch, because we can't do everything. So that was, of course, bad planning. and bad reaction. They could not be agile to react when they had a lack of resources. They could not be creative and not find the right resources at that time to be able to maintain the minimum service, like the lunch and the dinner was like a minimum for their business. They will be losing money or not make enough profit. So of course it's very important to be having all the processes and service sort of, but then you have to react to what's happening around you. Like Pedro said very well, all these risks of cyber threats, risk of human resources, of infrastructure, having the right infrastructure to keep and to scale up the business when there are needs. So this is very important that you have those layers very well established. The strategic layer where you often every once a year or every 3 months, you meet together with the decisions makers of the organization. You see, okay, what's strategic for us? Let's say itSMF or the airplane company. What are those services that are strategic? Those that we want to keep or those that we don't want to do, because we will save time and people to do those that we make profit or that are strategic for our end customers. Keep those operationals and plans well, and the support ones are the indicators to know if we are actually burning out our resources, if we are managing their capacity and availability right, and then have actions, as we saw this morning, the cases from the hospital and the Santa Casa de Misericordia, that they were managing all these dashboards and seeing if things were going wrong, taking the actions at the due time, not expect everything to burn out, and then, okay, maybe we have a human resource problem. No, act on when you see the things happening.
Okay, thanks. That's very interesting because it helps me launch the next question about education and the educational system, because we are facing times in terms of balancing the procedures and the politics and the policies and the standardization, and also at the same time we need to take risks, we need to innovate, and we need to make mistakes in order to make the evolution and to get to further steps. Okay, thanks, Pedro. I would be back here to Johan. No, I choose you. You need to trust me, okay? You need to trust me because I organize the turns here. Okay, Johan, you mentioned during the morning that you are on a PhD journey, so you are on that good position of having critical thinking both on the field and on the academic field. So you know both of them and you are aligning them. In terms of the education system, do you think that universities and superior qualification is integrating correctly and with best practices and in the best terms is integrating these concepts of trustworthiness, confidence, ethics, etc., or we have a way to go, still a way to go?
I think in terms of the points you mentioned about ethics and things like that, I think we have some way to go. My experience with the education system is that, or the things that I were involved in, is it focused very much on technology, implementing things to create a product, to create a service, whereas the component about the ethics of what you're developing, the interaction with people and so do not get much, is not much of a priority. So especially in a technical environment, I think there needs to be more focus on things like ethics, what does it mean to be trustworthy, even more focus on things like quality, not just implementing something to have it, to show it, but to really invest in the quality of that product or that service. I'm glad to say that when I was at university for my bachelor's degree, we did a lot of theory. You looked in the books, you did the sums, you learned the theory. Nowadays, with my son at university, they are doing more practical stuff. They are doing more hands-on things. How does a project in real life work? So they are learning more about real life. And I think eventually, because they're also working in teams and so on, aspects of trustworthiness will be brought forward, something which we did not have in my time.
Okay, thanks. And that leads me to Pedro. In terms of innovation, you have mentioned there some topics about innovation. How do you see the innovation networks and the relationship between organizations and innovation hubs, innovation players, etc., in terms of trust and in terms of agility? Are we keeping and are we being able to be agile as much as the market needs, putting innovation into real life in terms of delivery, in terms of product and service delivery? Or are we giving priority to agility and do not trust so much the innovations that arrive on the market? How are we keeping that balance?
In innovation coming from
basically the relationship between innovators and the academy and real life world. Is that trustable, that relationship, or there are some concerns yet?
Well, I always feel a bit uncomfortable to generalize about this kind of stuff. I only can talk about the experience I have in this one in particular. And I think you have in the innovation hubs and all the ecosystem, I would say, is much more oriented into the agility side that other companies or other business are. If it always works, well, then you have all this about the funds that you receive and the way you have to create the project to get the funds, and then you have the implementation, yeah? And in there, I think that it's not always synchronized. But overall, I would say yes, it's much more, the innovation side is much more in line with trying to get something fast to the market, try it. They are very, very comfortable with the concepts of the MVPs, of all the cycles of iterations to implement and to get the feedback from the market and try it as soon as possible. But then, of course, you have people who focus on the market. You have those who are focusing on getting funds, and the others who are focusing on doing both, okay? So, and you have a lot of, how should I say it, a lot of things that are not going well, I would say, in terms of those who just focus on getting more money and not exactly on on producing the best product and looking into the long term. But overall, yes, I would say that whenever you have innovation, you have much more agility because you need it to check what you are doing, unless you are doing some fundamental stuff in the university and in some other labs. That's a different thing. But I don't see innovation nowadays without agility.
Okay, thanks, Pedro. Going to Pedro. What about your perception on the training processes inside organizations and inside the operational processes in terms of trustworthiness, ethics, some behavioral values, etc., regarding confidence, etc. Do you see enough training, enough awareness in terms of the teams, the operational teams, or are they driven, the training processes are driven to agility to deliver product, service, etc.? So how do you see this relationship between technical training and some values, trustworthiness, confidence, etc. training in order to keep them together?
Very well. As we spoke before, there are lots of needs for new resources, so that becomes more and more critical, the training. Of course, training could be sometimes too late, and it can also be at some point a phase, especially if it's in the initial phase of someone in the company, can also be a tryout phase where the employee sees this collaborator, how good he can deal with different sorts of situations, and as well, the collaborator can see, do I fit this company or do they fit me? Do I see their values and do I identify with those values? So yes, it's very important that during those trainings, the values of the company, the vision, the mission, what are the principles, how they should operate with their customers, with their colleagues, with their chain of command, how they should be or act, or how they're expected to act. If they some companies want more control, or some are more decentralized, and that will also help those people that are searching for a job or working for a company to decide, okay, as I said, does it fit me or not? But of course, they need technical skills and they need to improve their trainings, the way they do things, so that they can deliver faster in a simpler way and have more responsibility, so the company can grow as a whole, their revenue, their number of employees, or their product, as Pedro was saying, if they are working on innovate a product. But if they don't have the skills, if they have the hard skills, but they don't have the soft skills, then they might not give value for the customer, for instance. If you don't value the customer as a person, or you don't have this sensibility, when you join a company, that could be a challenge. For instance, in our company, we like to hire people that have, even if they're out of the faculty, that they have been working with in a major store, like Decathlon or Fnac, or be it a different chain, because they are faced to big pressures and they are faced to deal with the customer, which sometimes is upset, not with that person, but with the institution or with this day, or because it's raining, and start screaming at him or not treating him good. And as you said, and we talked before, if people don't trust the organization when there are change happening, when things are being done by management, or where there's a new strategy, if they don't trust, they will not be involved in this change. They will not participate. So the training part is a very good way to align those values from the person with the company and see if there's actually a fit. And if that goes right, then the hard skills are, of course, fundamental. To have good engineers, good managers, etc. They are fundamental so that the company can grow as a whole. But without the soft skills, it can go to disaster. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Pedro. We must manage, of course, the trust they are putting on us and the agility that the organization needs. We have 5-10 minutes, so I would launch a last question for a last round, and I believe we have some time if someone wants to address our round table here. We'll have 1 or 2 minutes after that. So I would start by you, Pedro. What about the future? We are facing, just to mention 2 big challenges. We are facing a war, a global war, because nowadays almost all wars are global. We have just came out of a pandemic that has changed some things, other didn't change, although we expected they would. So what about the future in terms of keeping agility in a trustful way? What do we may expect on the near future? Because we have risk management, we have some concerns you have mentioned here. What is your feeling about the near future in terms of these two key factors on the organizations?
Well, I think that the findings I've shared with you just indicates that trust is clearly a major concern for everybody. So we will do whatever it's needed to keep it in the organizations. That's what I feel. And when we compare with what was happening some years ago, even with the those big companies, which the blue one and the other one, we've seen quite a lot of change in there, and I think it will keep on happening, that kind of change, so that this topic is really on top of everything, and so people will have to be, companies and all institutions will be more careful about this, not only how they use data, but also on the risks that we have in terms of cybersecurity. I think things will be clearly a focus. So they have to improve, but at the same time the risks are increasing. So it will always be a balance, but it's there, and I'm an optimist. So I believe that in the end things will get better. In terms of agility, I think it's agility, and as Johan and Pedro were saying, agility, it's not just about doing things fast and fail fast and recover fast. It's also a change in culture and the way that the teams are organized. And for instance, 20 years ago, I know I'm very old, but 20 years ago, people usually wouldn't talk about this. But you had some companies where this was already implemented, because, as we all know, these kind of principles of agility, they come from the Toyota production system, you know. So there are a lot of companies that for the last 50 years have been working around this need to empower people, to get trust, to be transparent, to collaborate, to involve partners, to work in a way that seeks improvements, not to blame people on failures, but how we can change. So, and this now is talked every day. The first time I started talking about this kind of issue some 10 years ago in Portugal, most of the people wouldn't understand what we were talking about. That's the truth. If you were talking in other countries, maybe, but and now it's something that it's a lot of companies are moving in that direction, changing the culture and adopting, because they see the only way to be agile is if you change the way you deal with all of this.
Okay.
So I'm optimistic.
Okay. Thanks. From what I know from you, I believe that. Okay. Thank you.
You
Thank
trust
you.
me.
I trust you. Thank you, Pedro. Johan, for finishing, one last question. I believe not too tough, not a tough one. What do you think are the main challenges for organizations to maintain and to keep being trusted on these times, on these uncertain times? What are the main challenges organizations have to keep being trusted by people, by employees, by clients, customers, etc., partners?
I think to keep consistent in what you are doing, to keep on doing the right things. Yes, to be agile, to improve, and so on, but to not now lose focus or lose energy, but keep on going, keep on improving, do not go backwards. There are a lot of challenges, like we had COVID and so forth, and you mentioned the war. There are lots of financial challenges these days. Keep on trying or keep on doing what you did before and keep on trying to do it better. I think that
Okay.
is a challenge, because we talked about education, we talked about resources and all those things. All those things are challenges that might prevent you from keep on going.
Okay. Thanks, Johan. And Pedro, one last question, one final question. And picking what Johan has just brought us, you have mentioned a little bit ago the mission, the vision, the values, etc. Do you think trustworthiness will be more dependent on having a strong purpose, as Johan just mentioned, a strong purpose, and be consistent, or in agility, in delivering with agility, in time, with SLAs, etc., etc.? How do you see them?
If I see...
If you see the future,
yeah.
depending on one or the other, on complementing each other.
Okay, so if we look at the mission and the vision, traditionally, as Pedro said before, they were seen as top-down. But as Pedro said, today, it's ingrained in our daily life that everyone can be suggesting a big corporation to improve or a small corporation to improve or bring another idea of business and become an entrepreneur inside the organization. So those values are not so top-down as they used to be, those missions or those visions. For instance, once in my organization, we had an argument, the whole company, we got together, and there was some incident, and we decided to list the values that everyone believed on. So everyone was listing, we had to come up with a list, and then we have to see those that were stronger. So that became our list of values. Mm-hmm. So it could have been something that we read in a book, and we came, okay, look, I went to this mountain there, and I have these 10 principles. No, but we, as the team that was at that time, decided together what would be our principles, our way of being and acting as colleagues and as a company. So that is a bit of a change of paradigm. Traditionally, we would have this corporate image and try everyone to be a little like a lamb. Mm-hmm. You would go on this and try to fit. Today is the opposite, because we have to get resources to actually be in the company, because you can have great vision, but if you don't have employees that believe that vision, and your customers don't see themselves in your trustworthiness or your values, so it's a big challenge there. You have to both listen to this, and now companies are telling when there's lack of resources, companies say, okay, now the most important is the resources, is the persons. Sometimes when they have lack of projects, they say, okay, now the most important is the customers. Of course, depends a bit on the philosophy of what the service or the company that is being offered. But yes, mission, vision is important, but it has to be something that everybody participates or believes. Otherwise, this will not be, it will be like a dragon with five heads, and it will not be focused, or as you said, that is very important to focus your resources. It will be loss of energy.
Okay. So user experience for the customers and employer branding as user experience internally also, exactly, in order to keep the values alive. Okay. Thank you, Pedro. Thank you very much, Johan. Thank you, Pedro. I think we have, well, you have trusted us and you are still here. So thank you very much for that. We are closing our final table. I think we have 1 or 2 minutes if anyone wants to address these magnificent participants here on the round table, thanking them. If not, Danielle and Mário, I believe we can close now. And thanks everybody for being here with us, for being and sharing all of the things and the information and the knowledge that we have been able to share during this day. Okay? Thank you very much. Daniela.
Shall we go? Shall we go?
Muito obrigada. Eu aqui agradeço também o facto de ter estado aqui ao longo do dia de hoje com todos vós. Agradecer muito ao itSMF Portugal a oportunidade para estar aqui durante esta 18ª Conferência. Agradecer também a todos os que se inscreveram, quer pelo presencial, quer pelo online. Agradecer aos nossos patrocinadores, é claro, pela oportunidade de tornarem tudo isto possível. E claro, ficam então os votos de um bom regresso a casa, que tudo vos corra bem. Passamos então para o encerramento com o Mário Costa. Vamos encerrar com as palavras do vice-presidente do itSMF Portugal. Muito obrigada e até uma próxima oportunidade. Agradecer também à equipa de som que esteve connosco ao longo do dia. Muito obrigada, até à próxima.
Obrigado, Daniela. Eu até trouxe aqui comigo o telemóvel para não me esquecer de agradecer a ninguém. Mas a verdade é que a Daniela já fez metade do trabalho, portanto já agradeceu aos palestrantes, já agradeceu aos oradores, aos participantes, aos que estão aqui, aos que estão do outro lado. Obrigado, Daniela, por conduzir os trabalhos, enfim, correram muito bem. Obrigado, Isabel, pela logística. E eu diria que acabamos esta conferência anual com a sensação de missão cumprida. Esta é a nossa missão, o itSMF Portugal, uma missão de partilha de experiências. Nós ouvimos aqui falar de frameworks, de normas, de certificações, de confiança, da visão impactante do Javier, do desafio inicial lançado pelo professor Luís Caldas, que nós vamos tomar como nosso no próximo ano, tornar a gestão de serviços TI com mais notoriedade enfim, acho que este é pelo menos o sentimento desta direção de missão cumprida. Voltamos-nos a encontrar no próximo ano, mas sem antes vos lembrar-me que todos os meses nós fazemos um bocadinho disto, não é uma conferência anual, mas é um webinar a que chamamos It's Time to Talk About, ao fim da tarde, 1 hora, uma coisa muito rápida, mas com temas muito diversos e muito interessantes. Também temos uma modalidade um bocadinho mais descontraída, o Hands-on Talk, por isso convido-vos, despeço-me e convido-vos a acompanharem-nos ao longo do ano. Muito obrigado.